call the meeting to order. My name is Diana Howard. I am the chair of the Virginia Beach Tea Party, and I welcome you all here tonight. Thank you so much. And if I can call our former chair, Kenny Golden, up to do the invocation, and if you would please stand and remain standing, and afterwards we will have the pledge by our vice chair.
Please join me in prayer, if you will. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for our wonderful country where we can meet and talk and discuss freedom. Please give us the wisdom to continue on and keep building our country so that we may perpetuate freedom through the rest of the world, so that we don't have to fight wars like we did in World War II and the Korean Wars, so that we can bring our young men and women home and protect them. As we stand here tonight, there are many, many of them overseas, airmen, sailors, Marines, Coast Guardmen. They're all out there, Navy corpsmen, doing their job, protecting us. They're standing on a wall. They're manning an aircraft. They're launching an aircraft from a carrier. They're standing a watch. They're doing their job to protect our wonderful country. Protect them and hold them in your hand. Protect our police officers here in the United States, in the state of Virginia, and the city of Virginia Beach. Hold them in your hand. Protect our firemen and our first responders and our EMS folks that go out and do the good for the people of this great country. Help us tonight learn that we may carry out your will. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll face the flag and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. And before we start, I just want to make a couple of announcements. If you would like to help us out and pay for this meeting here, you can buy a raffle ticket. There are donations, $1 for $1 or $6 for $5. Well, no, $6 for $5.
$1 for $1, $6 for $5. Just raise your hand, I'll bring them to you. Anybody want one?
50-50 means you get half, we get half, and we also have cookies that we'll raffle off as well. All right, and the other thing is we are being taped live on Facebook, and if you want to see that later, you can go on Robert Dean's Facebook page. And when I introduce our speaker, I want you to hold on to your questions until after his presentation. Our speaker tonight is Lyndon S. Remias. He is our city auditor. He is a certified public accountant and a certified internal auditor with over 19 years of public, private, and government auditing experience, and he's a graduate of ODU. He was elected to the Virginia Beach School Board in May of 2006, where he served for 2 terms, and he resigned when he was appointed by the City Council in May of 2008 to become the city's first appointed city auditor. I introduce to you Lyndon.
Back from the break.
I was actually named after Lyndon Johnson. So, there you go. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I say that sometimes as well. Well, thank you very much for coming out this evening. And thank you for inviting me, Diana. And thank you for your interest within our great city, because we do have a great city, and it takes people that are engaged. It takes people that are interested to continue to make our city a great city. So just a brief background. As Diana said, I've been the city auditor for the last 10 years. In May, it's 10 years. I am one of the council appointees, or as the council members, or some of them like to say, I am one of the 5 they can hire or fire. Okay? So do you guys know the other 4? You got the city auditor. Who are the other 4 council appointees?
City manager.
City manager.
City appraiser.
city real estate appraiser, city attorney, and she just retired.
City clerk?
City clerk. Okay? So those are what we call the 5 council appointees. Okay? So as the city auditor, I'm an appointee, I'm at the same level as the city manager, so I don't fall underneath Dave Hansen, the city manager. So that allows me to have that independence as the auditor to conduct the audits that I deem are necessary to be performed. I develop the audit plan, I develop those areas that are to be audited. Besides the, I hear myself. So besides the audits, we also perform, or we also administer the fraud, waste, and abuse hotline. Okay, so a lot of the cases that you probably read about regarding the city as it relates to fraud, waste, and abuse falls under my office. Okay, so we got the audit side, we have fraud, waste, and abuse. Okay, I've been involved with not only our community, but within our profession. I'm a member or prior president of the Institute of Internal Auditors, as well as the Virginia Local Governors Government Auditors Association. Okay. All right. So we could go ahead and get started. Okay. So what are our objectives for today? Sometimes when I'm asked to speak to groups, I've talked about my office, and we talk about some examples of various audits, some examples of various cases we have encountered. But tonight, as most of you are probably aware, there's a topic that's captured the interest of many. So Diana asked if I would come out to talk about the Pier Project. Okay, so I gave you a little bit overview of my office. I'm going to talk about the Pier Project. I'm going to discuss the results of my review. There's a hard copy that floated around for you to read, okay? And then we're going to discuss where we at, as well as the city's next steps, all right? Okay, so Pier Project overview. We all know that there's a discussion regarding building a pier and the city being involved with the project. So we're going to go over the project, 21.5 million proposed city investment, where we're at, and where do we need to go, okay? All right, so the typical lease process. So I want to clear up some questions. I'm going to clear up, and Robert, I'm going to be walking around, so you need to follow me if you need to follow me, okay? So I have that glare in my eyes. So the typical lease process, okay? Number one, we start off with, we've got to solicit a lease bid, okay? We review the bid's response. We then will approve the lease agreement and term sheet, and when I'm talking about we, not me, management, and council. Then there's plans to be a public engagement on the pier design. You negotiate the development agreement, and then you approve the development agreement for construction. How far did we get? Well, we got as far as soliciting the lease bid and reviewing the bid response. So we only got to the first 2 steps, and that's where we currently are. Okay? All right, so soliciting the lease bid, and what I'm trying to do is put some questions that have come across to me, some of you have posed. So step one, as I mentioned, is soliciting the lease bid. So what is the process for soliciting a lease bid, and why did we only give 2 weeks? All right, well, a lot of this is spelled out and dictated by the Code of Virginia. Paper having general circulation in the city or town. So the code only requires 2 consecutive weeks. Okay, on the very last page of the memo I provided to you, you can see what was actually posted, and in fact, it was posted for 2 weeks. Okay? It was posted for 2 weeks. right? And it says, the advertisement shall invite bids for the franchise, privilege, lease, or right proposed to be granted in the ordinance. The bid shall be in writing and delivered upon the day and hour named in the advertisement and so forth. And in fact, all of that took place. Okay, so have they properly solicited the bid? Yes. Why only 2 weeks? Okay, that's what the code spells out, and that is what the city always follows when they are putting leases out of this nature. All right, so let's go to the ad. So it's the next slide. All right, so the ad says, did the advertisement only mention it was for the lease of land? Okay, you have it in front of you. Okay, so there was a lot of misperception that the ad only said to bid on the lease. Okay, but you can clearly see, and that's why I give you a copy because the print is small. It says it is a bid for lease of city property, but it says the bid property shall be used for the development of a new 2-tier fishing pier with restaurant, retail, and entertainment on the upper level and a fishing platform on the lower level. Does that spell out what the city is expecting? Does the ad only say bid on the lease? Okay, so it does spell out what the expectations. Why are we leasing the land in the first place? Okay, it's leasing it for the expectation for the development of a pier. Okay, and then on the bottom, people said, well, why is it only 2 weeks? It tells you it was advertised on the 21st, 28th in compliance with the Code of Virginia. All right, so let's go to the next slide. So step 2 was, on the timeline, was to review the bid responses. Okay, it was pretty easy because we received, as a city, only 2 responses. Okay, and I'll get your questions at the end, Reed. So write them all down. So we only had two bidders. Number 1 was the Virginia Beach Development Authority, and we all know they bid $1. Number 2, Wool Services, Supplies, and Logistics. They made a bid of $12,000. All right, so what are some of the facts, right? We received 2 bids. That is a fact. Based on the bidder's capability, right? One is a known entity. No matter what you say about it, right? They've been around. They were established by the General Assembly. Okay. Based on the bidder's capability to undertake the magnitude of a project, $25.1 million city investment of this nature, city management made a recommendation to City Council to award a 40-year lease agreement to the VBDA. Okay. Wool Services, Supply, and Logistics was established and created this past November, and they have no known experience in regards to development. Okay, nice lady, I met her, but as far as experience, look up, doing some research on the company, there isn't it. All right, next slide. Let's just keep going. So, how bids resolved and to whom franchise award? All right, there's a lot of questions of why didn't we give it to the highest bidder? All right, so let's look at it. This is all from the code. What council is using, what the city attorney's office, what city management is using to kind of guide them through the process. Okay, so it says the presiding officer shall read aloud. Okay, we did all of that. The presiding officer shall receive recommendations from staff. Okay, staff made a recommendation to go with the Virginia Beach Development Authority. Okay, it says, after such investigation as the council sees fit to make, the council shall accept the highest bid from a responsible bidder and shall adopt the ordinance as advertised without substantial variation, except to insert the name of the accepted bidder. All right, here we go. However, the council, by a recorded vote of a majority of the members elected to the council, may reject a higher bid and accept a lower bid from a responsible bidder and award the franchise right, lease, or privilege to the lower bidder if, in its opinion, some reason affecting the interests of the city or town makes it advisable to do so. Okay? So the above, straight from the code, is why the city council doesn't have to award to the highest bidder. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. All right, did the resolution, okay, so once management made a decision, made a recommendation to the council, let's go with the VVDA. Okay, so there was some discussion between Councilmember Moss, Councilmember Dyer, and Abbott in regards to some of the fairness of the process. Okay, so I showed you what the process is, I showed you what the code, but nonetheless there was some disagreement in what the process. Did we follow the law? Did we follow the process? Okay, so because of that, Councilmember Moss introduced a resolution about 2 weeks ago at City Council meeting, and then there was a substitute motion that was also made. Okay, but regardless of what the resolution was, in essence, they were both asking the same thing. Okay, and I've got a copy, and we're going to read it right here. This is the one that passed. Okay, and really, the first few sentences are background, but what is circled in red says, and it's in the report, the City Council hereby directs the City Auditor to assess the 2 proposals received. Sweet and to the point. So a lot of people said, well, what was the City Auditor actually asked to do? Okay?
But that's not what Moss asked. He asked
Okay,
for an economic assessment.
Okay, so read. I've got the resolution, and I'm going to show it to you. So listen to this. It says, the City Council hereby directs the City Auditor to assess the 2 proposals received. At this point, we only have the bids. Okay, so let's flip to the next slide, because the next slide is Councilmember Moss's resolution. The first few are the same, but it's saying who's going to do the assessment. But where it comes to the action item, okay, so a lot of the other stuff is background. Let's read Councilmember Moss's resolution. And this is exactly what it says, because this is his copy. It says the committee, as opposed to the city auditor, is charged with assessing the 2 proposals received and making a recommendation. So what I wanted to make clear was the resolutions were asking the same, but he was asking to get Dr. Cook, right, a well-known economist at Old Dominion University, to review the bids, whereas the resolution that passed was asking me as the city auditor. The misconception that was out there that even Councilmember Moss made clear on his own Facebook page was, we did not ask the city auditor to do an economic analysis. I agree that needs to be done, and it will be done. But right now, we have 2 bids, and the bids, right, were a page and a half long. Okay, so really there is nothing to do the economic analysis on. But I agree with Councilmember Moss and Abbott, as well as Dyer, that it needs to be done. Okay? But this is Councilmember Moss's resolution. It's saying the same thing, but who is going to do it? Who's going to do the study? Okay, so I wanted to clear that up because I saw, some of the comments and I received some of the emails. Well, you're not qualified to do an economic analysis. I was never tasked to do an economic analysis. Okay, well, you're violating your code of ethics for trying to do something you're not capable of doing. Okay, I was asked to receive the 2 bids, regardless of which resolution you were looking at. Okay, so I just wanted to clear that up. All right, so the next slide. What did your review reveal? Okay, well, you have a hard copy. Okay, so in the hard copy, I give you some background. Okay, there is a methodology. Okay, I've got a copy. Okay, so we got some background. What did we do? We've got some methodology. We have some results, and then we have some recommendations. Okay, a lot of that I've already went over. Okay, and we have some justification on page 3 of why, how we got to some of our recommendations. Okay? Like I said, I've met the president of WSSL. She's a very nice lady. But in regards to making the recommendation, right, you got the 4 bullets up top with some of our justification for doing so. Okay, so based on the above, we recommended, right, because the resolution said to make recommendations after reviewing the bids. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. These are the recommendations we made. Okay, number 1, accept staff's recommendation and proceed with the lease agreement with VBDA. Okay, you got one choice, you got the other. Okay, so based on my analysis, I said the staff recommended go with the development authority. I made that recommendation. Number 2, finalize the term sheet. Number 3, perform a thorough economic impact analysis using city staff or an outside third party. This is where you can get involved, Dr. Cook, you can get involved economists. We could utilize our very capable city staffs, which we do for many numerous projects. And then also, as you can see on the report, it says, although this was not an assessment of the bid process, due to some questions regarding the transparency of the bid process, City Council should also consider opening back up the bid solicitation process. Okay? That's in there. So people are asking, okay? So the next question we've been receiving, or I've been receiving, did City Council reject the 2 bids because of your recommendation? Who told City Council to reject the bid? Who on council rejected the bid? Who on council said put it back out to bid? Okay, the council acts as a body. Okay, the council acts as a body. No one council member can say do this or do that. Okay, the majority conveys what is to be done. Okay, so did City Council reject the 2 bids? Because no, my first recommendation was to move forward with the VBDA. The decision to reject the 2 bids was a collective input. Yes, I did have input, but as well as the city attorney, the city manager, and the public, all the various stakeholders. Okay. In addition, the advertisement, you have a copy in front of you. Those that bid knew what they were bidding on. Okay, I'm not making this up. It says, the right to reject any and all bids is hereby expressly reserved. That's in the ad. Don't believe me? Flip to the last page and read it.
It's the law.
Okay? It's the law. Absolutely. So City Council, they didn't have to have a public hearing. They didn't have to have a public hearing to say, no, we're not going to take any of the bids. They have that right. Thus, no public hearing is required for City Council to reject the bids that was taken. That was always an option available and explicitly stated in the ad. So it was canceled at the majority of council's discretion. Okay? That's how it came about. All right? Next slide. Shouldn't we have just given the lease to the highest bidder? Yeah, I went over that already. Okay? Responsible bidder or offerer, okay, even though this does not, and I'm going to get into that as well, even though this does not fall under the Virginia Public Procurement Act, the VPPA defines what a responsible bidder is. Okay, this falls under the Code of Virginia. It says, a responsible bidder or offerer means a person who has the capability in all respects to perform fully the contract requirements. Okay? If you're putting out a bid to replace your roof, right? And somebody put in a bid, and like you would say, okay, I formed my company last week, and I'm going to bid $1, and somebody else that's been in business for years, they're saying it's going to cost you $10,000, right? Well, let's take the lowest bidder, or in this case, let's take the highest bidder. Okay, it's based on capability. Just think about it. If you were bidding something out yourself, you would want somebody that has the experience, the capability to perform a project of this nature, okay? And as my memo states, I concluded, as well as management, that WSSL didn't have the capability to do a project of this nature, okay? And the reasons are in my memo. All right, the next slide. Doesn't the VPPA apply? The Virginia Public Procurement Act, doesn't that apply? Shouldn't we follow regulations, okay? Do a simple Google search that says Virginia Public Procurement Act, you will get a PDF copy. When you get your PDF copy, go to the search section and put in land lease. You will not find the word land lease in the Virginia Public Procurement Act because the Virginia Public Procurement Act is applicable to goods and services. It's applicable when we're buying cars, when we're buying computers, when we're buying copy machines, when we're buying any chairs for the library, right? Computers, services, right? To cut our grass, provide consulting services, services to perform CPA external contract reviews, okay? Goods and services. This is a land lease that falls under the Code of Virginia, and I've given you the two sections that are applicable, okay? So people are throwing out there the Virginia Public Procurement Act. Look it up yourself. As an auditor, my motto is trust, but absolutely, you verify it. Okay, you will not find land lease. So the VPPA is not applicable. That's only for goods and services. All right, so what's next? Okay, well, we all know that March 7th, that was yesterday, right?
Yes.
Okay, yesterday, the city put out an announcement citing concerns about the clarity of the information provided. Okay? Right, that's their opinion. I provided you a copy. I went through the process. It is pretty clear, but there was some confusion to the process, what codes apply, what happens next. Okay, but citing concerns about the clarity of the information provided as part of the invitation to bid to lease public property on which the city would have constructed a public concrete pier. Okay, the ad said what it was for. Okay, so it wasn't meant to try to hide anything, wasn't meant to be confusing. It said it was for, right, building a pier. I mean, if you're going to bid, you should know what it says, right? All right, so would have constructed a public concrete pier. The bid process the city used to advertise the lease is the exact process it has used numerous times over the years for leases of city property. However, in most cases, this is wording, this is not my wording, this is from their press release. However, in most of those cases, terms outlining criteria and expectations for the project were identified prior to issuing the invitation to bid. Okay, so the city is acknowledging that the financial terms it would probably have been in everybody's best interest if that was made more clear up front. Okay, so that's where some of the confusion is, okay? So they're trying to do that. Okay, that did not happen in this case, and that's why they're going back out, okay? They could have went back out for 2 more weeks, okay? But we've got March, April, May, so almost 2 months. By code, it's only 2 weeks, okay? And it's not like you have to have, every store, every hotel, what are you going to have on the pier? You've got to have a plan, you've got to have a proposal, okay? All right, so that's where we are now in regards to the process. All right, some other questions that I've had come my way, and I'm going to address them. I'm not shy to address some of the questions. All right, so some other questions I've received. Okay, and I'm going to make a caveat, even though everybody knows this. I am not an attorney, and I'm not speaking on behalf of any attorney or law enforcement. Okay? These are my own answers, in my opinion. As an auditor, I give opinions in regards to compliance matters, whether it's city, whether it's state, or whether it's federal. Okay? Somebody said, isn't this bid rigging? Okay? Well, there is code, if in doubt, right? Don't make it up. Don't think. Let's look up what the code says. Okay? Combinations of bid rigs. Any combination, conspiracy, or agreement to intentionally rig, alter, or otherwise manipulate, or to cause to be rigged, altered, or otherwise manipulate any bid submitted to the Commonwealth Unit for the purpose of allocating purchaser sales to among persons, raising or otherwise fixing the prices of goods or services. Okay, so if they were trying to rig, would they have bid the minimum of $1? Maybe they would have bid $12,001 and said, "Oh, we have the highest bid." Okay, all right. Or excluding from other persons from dealing with the Commonwealth. Okay, they're trying to open up the process. Okay, now whether you have the capability, right? I would like to bid. We all can submit a bid, but do we have the capability? Okay, so anybody could bid on any RFP. If somebody says, "I want a roof," I want bids on replacing the roof. I could bid. I could put in a bid of, "I'll do it for you for $50,000. I'll do it for you for $1." All right? Robert can do it for you for $10,000. Okay? Well, what's your capabilities? Well, I don't have capabilities. Okay? So that's what we're thinking about. Okay? So any person violating this section shall be guilty of a Class 6 felony. Right? Is bid rigging? You can throw that out there, and it's nice to be accusatory. No, it's not bid rigging. Okay? What's another question? Okay? Can the city be sued? Of course the city can be sued. You can sue the city for anything. You can trip on a chair leaving here and sue the city. Do you have a case or not? Right? You can sue the city, but whether you have a case or not, I've gone over what the code says. I've gone over the process. So if you see there's a hole in the process, and you have a vested interest because your bid was not accepted, sure, you can sue the city. But you better be able to make a case. Okay? All right, so that's where we're at. And I call it both ways. If the city there's areas that are opportunities for improvement, they're not doing things the right way. You know, those of you that know me and follow me and read some of the work, we make recommendations. I'm not afraid to make recommendations that aren't going to put the city in the best light. Okay? But if there isn't something wrong, I'm not going to say there's something wrong just because people are hooting and hollering there's something wrong. Yes, Reed.
Where to begin?
Okay.
You said hold your questions.
Questions?
Yeah.
One question?
So, the first issue that I have is, in your findings, you state, in addition, a public record search revealed the president of SSL had several court judgments against her, including unlawful detainers, warrants and debts, and several garnishments. The VBDA, which is a political subdivision created by the General Assembly, is filled with appointed members. Did you go back and audit each individual member of the VBDA and the businesses that they own and put together a list of their judgments, unlawful detainers, warrants and debt, and garnishments from every member of that VBDA? And did you then in fact go back and look at that collective body as individuals, because it states in your thing, a bidder is a person. The VBDA is a political entity created by the General Assembly, let alone the fact you've got a government entity bidding against private citizens for a private venture. That aside from this, I see nothing in here where you did an assessment of the individuals, their conflict of interest, and their abilities and capabilities to carry this out. VBDA is not a corporation.
Okay.
They're not accountable. Okay, that's number
No,
one.
one question at a time.
Well,
Let him
you
answer
said
them.
hold my question.
Hold your questions to the end, and everybody gets asked one question at a time.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Let me answer Reed's question. He has a great question. And by the way, if I don't get to your questions, I'll be around. You know, once the formal meeting ends, I'll be around to answer all your questions. I'll stand in the hallway. If you need to go to the parking lot, I'll do that. So the question asked by Reed is a great question. Right now, step one, as we've outlined the process, is who to award the bid to. We've got two entities. We have the VBDA, which is a body.
Comprised of individual
Yeah.
persons
Which-
as bidders.
Yeah,
Persons.
the VBDA is a body that is appointed by the council. Right now, they are not voting or taking any votes. And prior to making any votes in regards to, because you can only have a conflict when you're getting ready to
That's
vote.
the
when you're
question
getting ready to
was,
vote
you
on an issue.
evaluated the capability of a person who bid
Versus
and
the
looked at their
capability-
record at that person and said, well, they have judgments and questionable things in their past. The VBDA is constructed of persons who work for businesses. Did you do the same due diligence on every one of those businesses and persons?
What we looked at as a body, the capabilities of them as a body. Yes, the VBDA is made up of individuals
Who
but
work
it's
for
not,
companies.
Yeah, but it's not the individuals at this time that are being granted the land lease.
So the
Now,
answer is
once-
no.
Yeah, so it's no.
So you
Yeah.
didn't do the same due diligence on the VBDA and their shady history and their nefarious actions which they have. Yes.
Next question, we'll get back to you.
It's going to be a little long, but I just want to explain something to you, which is very interesting that you bring up, because you're only giving an opinion as good as the information given to you. Would it surprise you to let you know that the people, first of all, we're not talking about the Development Authority who are leasing that, we're talking about Bruce Thompson. Let's get that straight, and Ed Ruffin. That's a fact. So that's the truth. So we're playing a game here, a shell game of hide and seek here. But let me help you with something that'll help you, because you
have
talk.
a question.
Okay, but I have to ask you the question in order so you can understand it. It's a little complicated.
Okay.
Did you know that the lawyers for the people who were pushing for the dealers are Troutman and Sanders? Did you also know the lawyers for the development authorities are Troutman and Sanders? Did you also know that the lawyers for the city of Virginia Beach are Troutman and Sanders? Did you also know the lawyers who would do the lending for the loan are Troutman and Sanders? Did you know that?
Yes, I did.
That's a huge conflict. I mean, you cannot even get past that moment at a given level. Did you also know, have you ever heard of insider trading before? Insider trading is when you have insider deals legally. You cannot pass the muster test at the courtroom. $1 for a lease that's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars will get thrown out of the courtroom. You've got the Development Authority, which is an arm of the city of Virginia Beach. They're going to get their money from the city of Virginia Beach, okay? For a year and a half at least, the city of Virginia Beach has been dealing with one developer and one developer only to cut his magnificent deal. Now this is where I'm only saying this to you.
Yes.
You don't have all this information. You heard what I said here today. I've been talking about it for 17 years. This is corruption at its finest. And there's bid rigging at its finest. Have you ever heard the term in color of law?
One question.
Color of law.
That was the question.
Color of law. You know what color of law means.
I cannot tell you if I know what bid rigging was, and we just...
Can I tell you what color of law is? When the city or any entity that's elected or appointed or works for the city, when they use the laws to benefit a deal they're trying to cut. Did you read the newspaper today? What the city said in the paper today? They admitted they picked the person. They admitted they rigged the deal today. They admitted it today in the paper. They admitted that. And why we're here today is because of these reasons. Look, I appreciate what you said. You're only as good as the information given to you, and I appreciate what you said, but everything you said to me is garbage. Sorry.
So that's your question, okay. Anybody else have a question? Petey?
Why do we need a pier?
Well, that's not.
Yeah, that's beside.
But
I was, as you can see, there was a resolution that was passed that gave me direction on what I needed to do. I'm not here to
I'm not saying you
debate
can
the
answer the
merits
question.
of why we need a pier, who our attorneys are. Basically, it was review the two bids, provide my insight and opinion. I may not necessarily disagree with, some of your insights, but that's within either with the city manager's, city attorney's office, and so forth. Yes, sir.
Kenny Golden was next, I'm sorry.
Okay, Kenny.
He had his hand up.
Who is VBDA? Who is,
The VBDA.
explain the organization to
Okay.
all of us, sir.
Okay, the
I don't know.
VBDA is the Virginia Beach Development Authority. They were established by the General Assembly going back into the 1960s to help the Commonwealth, to help the city grow their corporate tax base. They are by code, a separate component unit, obviously as an arm of the city, right? The city council
No.
appoints the
They're a
11.
political subdivision on
Yeah.
equal caliber as the city of Virginia Beach, created
Yeah.
by the General Assembly.
Okay,
They are
okay.
not an arm of the city
Yeah,
of
well,
Virginia Beach.
they are appointed by and utilized to carry out their action, city funds, city and state funds.
But who are they?
They're the
So
ones who
there are
weren't
11
here.
members, I can't rattle off the names, but there are 11 members and they so there are 11 members that have been appointed by the city council.
Do they
Okay,
meet
Tim-
and vote?
Yeah, they number one, they meet and vote every month, and in regards to conflicts of interest, prior to every vote, and you guys can FOIA this, prior to every vote, that's where they have to complete their disclosure form. And if they sign that form and there's a conflict, that is the point to bring those issues up. Right now, we're simply awarding it, so now if we award it and then they contract out and there's conflicts, before every vote on who they're going to deal with, whether it's Bruce Thompson or whoever, they have to sign a form. And it says, these are my interests, these are not my interests. And if they do that and there's false statements on there, or it's not disclosed, then you can bring it up.
It's Tim's turn, he had his
Okay,
hand.
well, you can FOIA that because before every vote, that's part of their process.
Who's the president of the VBDA?
President of the VBDA is we all know, you know, Doc Wood, Jim Woods.
I didn't know her first name.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Right?
Dorothy Wood, she's
Dorothy.
the mother of the
Her son is on the city council,
Okay.
correct?
Yes.
You don't think that's a conflict of interest?
Like I said,
I just asked you a question. Do you think that's a conflict of
okay,
interest?
Sorry, this is what when you have a conflict of interest is you're voting on an issue where you have a direct or indirect benefit. So as a member of the VBDA, if she's voting, I mean, the conflict of interest between Councilmember Jim Wood and Dot Wood on her vote,
Sure.
you know, we've got to see
Here's how that works.
we have to see
Okay,
we have to see
Campaign
what
Make
contributions.
the resolution.
we have to see what
all
their
right,
we have to see what their
Wow.
conflict of interest statements state prior to every vote they take, and if you don't trust me, vote,
You're smart.
well, Levinson has violated that several times. Tom, you're
absolutely,
next.
so the forms are there.
Tom,
So,
My problem with this is, sure, go ahead and build a pier, Ferris wheel, whatever, but why does our money have to be in it? Why can we not lease the land to a private entity without any city money going into it?
and, yeah, I mean, I'm not here to defend the merits of the project. That's made by the city manager, city
Okay.
council.
you'll be
I
next.
mean, I've got an opinion on that, but my opinion is just like yours, okay?
Okay.
So we can all
Next.
have varying opinions.
No, wait, this gentleman's next.
It would just seem that, like, the answer to the question is because you get 2 weeks to look at a vague proposal for bids. It takes an extraordinary length of time to figure this stuff out. I mean, just trying to guess what your EPA impact statement is going to cost you to put together. It's impossible. It's impossible to make a sensible bid on a project like this with this kind of thing. And it also shows, or I think it betrays the facts surrounding construction of this nature. This is not something that
Is there a
gets
question?
done rapidly. I mean, that's my
and like I
attempt to
said,
answer.
I'm not going to disagree with you on that, and for those.
Okay.
Well, what would you
The
think?
next-
I mean, like, would you think that this could have been organized in a different way? That's my question to you. How
Well-
would you have organized it? You're a man
Yes.
with the
Well,
responsibility
well,
and
well,
experience.
obviously, I think collectively, the council has agreed that there probably could have been a better process, and that is the reason why they're going back out with a new process. But as I outlined in my presentation, in regards to did they follow what the Code of Virginia states, I've shown it to you. It's all in there. Yes, they did. Could, despite that, could there be a better process? Yes.
Okay, Leslie's next.
Oh, I do remember. I noticed that once the arena was off the table, all of a sudden this was on the table. That's all I got to say.
If this fails, what's next?
Yeah.
Is that your question? If this fails, what's next?
Tagging off of hers.
Yeah,
Now,
that's,
I had my hand up for a question. My question is this.
as far as the various projects, that's at the direction ultimately of the city manager that runs the city, with some of the direction provided by the council. So.
Okay, Reed. Ask
In your-
your second question.
In your
He
slides,
didn't answer, he didn't really get to ask his question.
Well,
Do you feel your question
that
was
was
answered?
sort of an answer. My question really is one of
What is next?
light rail, arena, pier. What is going to be the next multi-million, billion, trillion-dollar project after the Cavalier and all the other stuff that's going on here, where we have to dump our money into to keep some contractor busy?
Is all the other
Well,
stuff still
what
on
I
the
would do
table?
is I would suggest that for next month's meeting, you invite City Manager Dave Hansen or Deputy City Manager Ron Williams, and I'm sure they'll be more than happy to outline their vision of what is next.
Okay, read your second question.
okay, Lyndon, in your remarks, you reference State Code 15.2-2101. And in that, you talked about anything that was in excess of 5 years. That code that you quoted talked about 2 consecutive weeks to advertise a bid in the paper.
Yes.
It did not address that that bid could have been open for a year or 2 years to potential vendors, to this gentleman's point. In fact, nothing in that code seemed to indicate that there was any requirement whatsoever for the duration at which that bid can be open for qualified vendors to submit. My point to you is we have learned that there was backroom deals and negotiations with all these people involved for more than a year before that 2-week notice was out. How many days after that 2 weeks notice was other fellow competitive bids allowed to assemble this amazingly complex bid proposal that would have satisfied your audit? How long did they have after those 2 weeks to submit their bid for this multi-million-dollar project?
Oh, could I add on to that? Why did unsolicited bidders, did you not look into their background?
As far as the 2 that submitted the bid, it's the VBDA and WSSL. So while there may be others involved, the Virginia Beach Development Authority, they, as part of their process, will then subcontract that out. But as far as who the bidders are, no, I did not, because the bidders were the VBDA and WSSL. Now, Reed, in regards to your questions, right, I think the city has acknowledged, and I'm not saying
My
I
question was
necessarily
specific.
agree. Yes.
How long did they have to submit a
I think they
bid?
had I think prior to their knowledge, I would only know since it was
The
posted.
second week that
Yes,
it was
since it was
advertised,
posted.
when did the bid close?
2 weeks after.
2 weeks.
Yep.
So they had 2 weeks. The group, the development authority, who works with city council, who was working with these other 6 families, has been working on the project for years. and then they put out a 2-week notice and gave 2 weeks for any open competition to bid on this project? You don't see a problem with that?
I didn't say I didn't see a problem with that.
Okay.
I did not say I did not see a problem with
Okay.
it. I might agree with you. But like what I said is we're looking by what does the code actually
And
state.
it doesn't
Is it
state
fair?
how long
Yeah.
that can be
Absolutely,
open.
and I'm not saying I disagree.
Okay, Tony?
Two things here. What I find kind of interesting is that this, we all know, and as a former contractor, I know the bidding process very well.
Good.
But it's interesting to me that most of us know that, as Reed was just speaking of, parties have been working on this proposal and this bid for years. And I find it very interesting that back in 2014, Cook Development came to the city wanting to invest $25 million to put a Ferris wheel in down at the Oceanfront. But the Planning Commission decided, no, that's not a good idea because the Ferris wheel, as it's going around, the people on the Ferris wheel will be able to see into the condominiums on the oceanfront. That's the first thing. So it's interesting that right after that, all of this preparation started in regards to this bid. That's number one. But the other thing I would like to ask in all seriousness is taking into consideration, obviously, I'm going to say corruption pertaining to this bid. Who now is responsible or should take on the responsibility of looking at these bid regulations, whatever you want to call them, and maybe restructuring the process? Who would be responsible for that?
Well, ultimately, the process and the process that management follows is with the guidance of our city attorney's office, with the guidance of our real estate city attorney, along with our procurement officers. So they're giving the council, city management, the guidance in regards to the process. When I'm looking at it, as I mentioned, right, there's a lot of, could it be this, could it be that? And that's why I made sure to spell out where in the code you could find the guidance, right? A lot of people are throwing out, we should follow the Virginia Public Procurement Act. Okay, so we all know, right, land leases don't fall under that. There's really two simple sections in the code that spells out the process to be followed, and that is in fact the process that was followed. Now, I'm not here to speak or defend city management in regards to what happened prior to when I got involved, okay, because I may or may not disagree with some of your comments, okay, like I said, those are for the city manager, deputy city manager, to be accountable for. In regards to what I was tasked, I'll be more than happy to be accountable and answer what I can. But I may not disagree with some of your comments.
Okay.
Rana? Thank you for being here tonight. It's very nice for you to come out and talk to us and give us the opportunity to ask questions. I really appreciate it. I'm very concerned about the ever-growing debt, which we're fast approaching $3 billion in this city for the debt and the unfunded pension liabilities. What I would like to know, since you are the auditor and you audit various things and you said you create the audit plan,
Yes.
when or where is the last audit of the TIP fund? Because the TIP fund is where they say the money for this will come from, and I have serious concerns about the general fund monies going into the TIP program, monies that maybe were there for the arena or other projects like the light rail that are not being done, being moved because the city manager said at one of his meetings, I believe it was the RAC meeting, that he has set aside, I may not be using his exact word, but he has set aside funds. So how could I, as a citizen who understands a little bit about money and finance, come and look at an audit of the TIP fund? And when was the last time you did it?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Since I have been here, that is an area that has not been audited. Most of these, yeah, but that's not to say it's not going to be audited. As a matter of fact, I had an entrance conference. One of the audits that we have just commenced is an audit regarding the Virginia Beach Development Authority. Okay? For the TIP fund, I would say you could probably expect to see something on our next fiscal year audit plan. The question, let me just address the question, because this could be another topic in itself. The unfunded liability. There is a difference, and I can see why there is some confusion, because there is a difference between unfunded liability and underfunded liability, right? So I have a mortgage on my house, right? $200,000 remaining. That would be considered a unfunded liability. I don't have $200,000 to paid off today, but that does not mean I don't have the revenue stream or the capital in the bank to pay that debt. So yes, when you throw the $3 billion unfunded, that is a true statement, but people need to know what is the definition between unfunded and underfunded. And if it was underfunded, I would be really, really concerned. Unfunded, not so concerned.
Well, let me just give you a comment back. My comment is the way that other cities, because all I can do is look at what other cities and municipalities have done, is they have raised the taxes. And we just had the taxes raised, we've had the stormwater fees raised, we've had the meal taxes raised, we've had everything raised. And we're looking at a group of people here who are just trying to live and pay their bills and be good citizens.
I agree. I'm a citizen myself, and I feel the same thing.
I'm sure you do, because we all do. And all I'm trying to say is that it's very nice for you to come, but I think there needs to be more transparency, because I think I am one of the few people out here trying to make sure people understand how the money is being moved around. And I've tried to understand the CAFR, but I got to tell you, with the hundreds of pages of the CAFR, I can't find the 2 pages for the unfunded liabilities in the same 20 pages. They're so far apart, and only what Patty puts out is what I can really understand, because the documents you give us are not really easily to read from the city. Okay, they're not your documents, but there's got to be a better way.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to go back.
Question?
Yes, a question, but I got to give it to you the way you put it out a little bit. You talked about, you did a little investigation between the 2 bidders and the credibility of the 2 bidders.
Capability.
Capability.
Yes.
Well, that's a better one. That's even a better one. The capability. The truth is, we all know it's not the Virginia Beach Development Authority that's getting the lease. It's Bruce Thompson. Let's talk about, because you didn't do no audit on Bruce Thompson, let's just talk about his past history with the city of Virginia Beach. The Cavalier deal, $10 to $20, $30 million under budget. Really not a good move on the business level. You're bankrupt in the private sector, just so you know that. The first hotel project on 31st Street started at $9 million, ended at $50 million. Not a good thing. Starts at $9 million, ends at $50. And the second project of the 31st Street project ended the same way. You've got a company that time and time again, that underbids the projects, comes back to the city and is acceptable behavior. How in the hell can you see that's good? Well, by the way, let me make this other point. I want you to answer this, because this is good. This other entity, no matter what it is, a company, has never had a history in the city of Virginia Beach. We don't know how good or bad they could be, but we do have a history with PHR in the city, and we know how they underbid and it cost us more money. Did you do anything on PHR?
Okay, there's 2 bids received. One had the name of Virginia Beach Development Authority. One had the name of WSSL. Those are the 2 that we looked at. So.
And I met with, hold on, so you know, I met with Ed Ruffin. It's his deal. I met with him 2 days ago.
Yeah, well, we all know that. So we know the VBDA is going to subcontract out with
So you do know that.
to somebody else.
Another smoke and mirror.
And the reason we had to put out the bid was because the city received an unsolicited bid.
That's correct.
Okay, but they were not investigated. Sir,
Okay, I don't know what your discretionary room is when you're sending out a bid. I, like the woman behind me, am in the contracting business, been in it many years. And I know that it takes time to put a proposal together. The code, which you've said many times tonight, is not the law per se, it's the minimum requirement to
Yes.
fulfill the law.
That's correct.
The minimum requirement. So if you think, do you have the discretion, this is my question, do you have the discretion as a responsible person to the city council to tell them that 2 weeks to put a proposal together of this nature is not in the spirit of the minimum nature of the law, that they need more time? Do you have that discretion? This is a yes or no. Do you have that discretion?
I can't make council do anything. I could give some input on that. And those discussions do come up. They're provided by, as I mentioned, the city attorney's office. We've got a whole real estate team. The code says 2 weeks for this next set of bids.
I got
It's
it.
for two-
You're going-
two-
I
yes,
got that.
for-
I
for
totally
2
got
months.
that. I'm going back to the original event.
Yes.
Did you?
Yes.
And you said yes, this is too short a period of time. You stood up and said
No,
yes.
because I was not asked.
okay.
Okay.
Tony?
We've got Councilmember Moss here, and they can speak and think for themselves. But I do make recommendations all the time, and the question was raised. So it may not have come from me, but that question in
Okay.
regards to the timeliness is certainly something that was raised. Whether
Tony,
I raised
did you
it or
still
not.
have a question?
No.
Tony, behind you. Did you still have a question? You had your hand raised up before.
Yeah, the only other thing that I wanted to ask about is fiduciary obligation. Does anybody in the city have a fiduciary obligation to the citizens of this city?
To the electors.
I would think all of us.
Yes, absolutely, and the...
Then why don't they exercise it?
The collective body makes the decision.
Are we still being taxed on light rail, and if so, where's the money going?
John Atkinson, your treasurer.
But just to follow up, if you're the auditor, are you aware that we're still getting taxed? And
Yeah, we are.
Do you know where it's going?
We are. It's gone right back in.
Well, John, would you like to answer that?
We're getting down. John
We
will
have
probably answer it
Councilman
better.
John Moss here.
He'll answer it better than I do.
John?
I know, I'm going to give an answer that people are not going to like, but it's going to be the right answer. When we appropriated I didn't vote for that budget, but when the tax went in to raise for light rail, it had a designated purpose, and we had a multimodal account where all those assets were deposited, which was all. When we do in each and every budget process, we attach and pass a tax rate. And each and every budget is a unique and distinct legal document. So what council did is they basically disestablished the multimodal fund, and then we dispersed the assets and held the money back to pay for the thing. And then that tax rate was kept the same. Whether it was the decal on your house or whether the real estate tax rate stayed the very same. But the appropriation language changed. There was no more multimodal account, but the revenues that were derived were dispersed other places. So if you're asking, was the tax reduced when the requirement went away? No. Is that a breach of faith? In my opinion, yes. You're the voters. Ultimately, you get to sanction the people that do that. That's your call. But can you say that the tax that's now in place is still in place for light rail in a ethical every day to cross your table? The answer would be yes. But from how an auditor would look at it, or a CPA, or a lawyer, which now none of us really live, right? From that perspective, the answer is no, it is not still in place. But it was you didn't get your money back.
Yeah, and so then where is it being spent? It's being spent as part of the general fund on some of the other expenses.
Okay. Reed?
Okay, so Lyndon, you quoted a lot of law, but did you look into the law in the state of Virginia that talks about requiring a citizen referendum anytime $10 million or more of general obligation bonds or debt is issued? And the fact that the Virginia Beach Development Authority issues bond debt, which of course is then under the liability of the city of Virginia Beach, did you look in your audit into the viability of the VBDA and the council doing this action without a referendum when in fact the funds for the VBDA come from bond debt, which is not put on a referendum? And I believe recently we just did another, what, 130 million?
116.
116 million. Since you're dealing with the VBDA, this quasi-government thing as your bidder, not a person, but a VBDA board, don't you think that we should perhaps look at the law and ask, why isn't this on a referendum, since it's a public beach, and it's public land, and it's public funds, and the money the VBDA has is from general obligation bonds that they float? Where was the referendum, and why doesn't that law apply?
I know that too.
I mean, the questions you're asking are great questions. Obviously, that's not part of what I was tasked to do. Those questions lie squarely on the feet, ultimately, on the 11 elected council members. Okay?
John, would you like to answer that?
That's way beyond.
John Moss. I'm not a lawyer, I didn't stay on holiday.
Just stay up there.
Stay up.
The city charter specifies that the city can borrow 10 million, this is a charter called charter debt, it has a very specific meaning, that the city can borrow $10 million of new debt every year, and the amount of charter debt that they have, or bond referendum debt, that they retired in the prior year without going to the voters. If they want to borrow more than that amount, which varies by year based on what you retired, then they have to go and ask the public. And that is what they call general obligation debt, meaning it is backed by the full faith and credit of the city. And what does that mean? If we want to default, the creditors, or the people who we owe money to, can go to the court and a judge would make them raise taxes to raise the revenue. So there is no protection against default. That's what that really means in a nutshell. Now, a creative people, just like on Wall Street, they're always trying to find a way to get around the people who pay the bill so you don't get to sign off on the mortgage note. So what they found is that the Development Authority issues debt, but they have no assets and they have no income. And it was not for the purpose for which they were established. But now they issue debt for schools and police stations and libraries. But clearly not the intent, but ethics clearly is not a thing that concerns the majority on council. So what we do is, they issue the debt, the city enters into a memorandum of understanding with the Development Authority, and those bonds are issued with this key phrase: subject to annual appropriations by the city council. And because they are not, with that phrase, they're one, not general obligation debt, and there is no recourse by the people who lend us the money to go to court to make us raise any kind of fees to pay that debt. But guess what that debt is attached to? Your school, your library, and now those assets would become the assets of the lender. So what do you think the likelihood is that we would let that happen? And secondly, that wouldn't affect our bond rating. So except for you don't get the vote on it, and secondly, that there's no legal recourse, that's the vehicle by which to borrow money. So we would have you would have had a say on a lot more things, save for that mechanism. And that is the mechanism, that's the distinction between general obligation debt and the revenue debt that's issued by, revenue bonds by the water and sewer people. But it's not high finance, but it's just a way to circumvent the need to come and ask you to sign on the bottom line ballot box to borrow money, and that's how it works.
Thank you, Mr. Moss, thank you.
Okay, RK, you have to be our last question.
Okay. You asked earlier about, you talked about comparing the two companies. We talked Development Authority, we talked the new bidder. You do know that the Development Authority, one of the members is under investigation for conflicts of interest, and there are multiple, if not 3 or 4 members, that are also have conflicts of interest. Did you take that into consideration when you recommended that they had to deal, knowing there could be some corruption involved with these people?
So what happens with the VBDA, okay, so right now, it's the lease is, they're discussing the lease of, between the city and the VBDA. Once the VBDA decides who they're going to enter into an agreement with, or votes on that, that is the time they will be individually have to be accountable to themselves by filling out a detailed conflict of interest statement that is of a higher degree that is even asked of the council. The form they're completing, they're attesting to themselves, is a standard of conflict that's greater than. No, because they're not voting, and it's not relevant at this point. At this point, no.
It's okay.
You asked me a question, I said no.
Contract to someone who may be corrupt.
He did not investigate.
I did not do that because we're not down that road.
No, but he made a statement about the other bidder. He did this assessment on one bidder, but not the other in his recommendation.
You missed that.
I think we've established that.
Okay,
It's an entity. You have to understand, Reed, it's an entity.
The other entity is a authority composing of individuals, but collectively they make decisions, not individually.
And the statute you quoted said a person as a bidder. That's what that statute, 15.22101.
okay,
The answer here is we need to replace city council.
That is true.
right. Okay, no, we cannot take any more questions on this. This is almost 8:15. We have to move on. We'd like to thank the city board.